Are you watching what's happening in the world? The situation in Iran, and I've said this Wednesday, is not going to de-escalate. In fact, yesterday, Jerusalem had a fall in the old city of a missile. What's going to happen when one of those things lands on the Temple Mount and hits the Al-Assad Mosque? Who are they going to blame? They're not going to blame Iran. Oh, that was Israel. Israel set that up. Wait, watch. Heed my warning. Listen to my words. Okay? It's going to happen. That's what Iran wants. Iran is backed into a corner. Iran is ready to fight to the bitter end, and they are going to stop at nothing to turn it around on Israel. Watch. But I want you to look beyond the headlines. We look through this lens right here. But look beyond just the simple headlines, because there is a lot happening in the headlines. But what I want you to see is the convergence of what is happening in the world. Because while everybody's watching Iran and the situation in Iran, and I've read articles and information about how the Strait of Hormuz situation is going to bring about food shortages and so on. That's to incite panic and fear. You understand that the United States, we only get 4% of our oil. 4%, that's four fingers, right? Okay, right. I got the correct hand up. 4% of the oil comes from the Middle East for our fuel, for our gasoline and oil. The rest comes from other sources other than that. But no matter what, when they lock down the Strait of Hormuz, everybody goes bonkers. And it affects us. That's why we're paying more on the gallon, right? Because the Ayatollah sneezed, the Ayatollah of the day sneezed, and it's made the gas prices go up. That's also where a lot of fertilizer and other things is shipped through that strait. There's a lot of commerce that ships through that strait. At the same time, and this is where it's getting by a lot of people, have you seen the amount of acceleration that's happened with artificial intelligence and the influence of artificial intelligence? Most people aren't watching this. The level of information that is controlled by artificial intelligence now. Andrea and I maintain YouTube channels. I have a YouTube channel for the church. I have a YouTube channel for Coming Soon Ministries. And for a while we were trucking, we got to follow views and numbers and stuff. And so we've been trucking this. And I was talking with another national speaker on the same issue just last week or a couple weeks ago. He's like, I'm being throttled. And so we're watching the same thing, where we were getting several thousand views on a single video. Now we're down to a couple hundred. Why? Because of artificial intelligence. It's managing what you see. You don't realize this, because most people are just doom scrolling when we can't sleep at night. We're like just going and doom scrolling for hours and hours and hours because we have insomnia, because we drank too much coffee in the morning and into the afternoon, and now the Ambien hasn't kicked in, so now we're doom scrolling. You're being monitored. Not only are you being monitored, you're being, how do I want to say this? What you're seeing is being manipulated. Good word there, Brian. Good word. Manipulated. This is happening on a massive scale. There's not some guy in a geeky corner somewhere in Seattle going, oh, let's keep these people from watching this. It's all artificial intelligence. It's all artificial intelligence. Why does that matter? Because as far as I'm concerned, when the closer and closer we get to the tribulation, thank God we'll be out of here, the closer and closer we get to the tribulation, the more and more control of information is going to be asserted. Simultaneously, we're watching anti-Semitism blow off the rails. No one's paying attention to it. All we see is the headline. Well, another synagogue got attacked. Well, this, well, that. And we want to blame impartially correctness, radical Islam. It goes beyond that. We can stop it if we wanted to. Look, I worked counterintelligence for a dozen years in law enforcement. What is known and what the communications are known and everything that is happening prior to these events is known. And it's easy to stop. I've stopped many attacks in my own law enforcement career. But we are seeing anti-Semitism accelerate, not decelerate. Why? Well, first of all, we can say, well, there's this and there's this. We can blame radical Islam, we can blame the left, we can blame the right, we can blame the middle, we can blame all these other things. But what we need to understand as believers is this is more than a cultural or political issue. It's a spiritual issue. You understand that? It's a spiritual issue. Very clear English here. It is a spiritual issue. And if we focus on the nature of the spiritual issue, then we have a better understanding of why it's happening. As the world is accelerating towards the Great Tribulation, thank God we're not going to be here, Satan is rearing up. He is pushing forward. He is maniacally and strategically pushing back against God's plan. Who is the center of God's plan? Israel. Okay? Listen, you're not here. You wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Israel. Right? Your salvation came, what did Jesus say? Salvation is from the Jews. That was who God chose. When it says God, when we say Israel is God's chosen nation, it doesn't mean that He likes. Well, it doesn't mean that Israel gets a free pass on everything and the rest of the world has to lump through it. Quite the opposite, actually. If you look at the headlines, it's obvious to that. But what it means, what the Bible means, what we mean when we say Israel is God's chosen people, is God chose Israel to be the vessel to carry through His plan of salvation. Okay? So, with that, Romans 3. Why did God choose the Jews? Because one of the reasons was to carry the oracles of God. We have our scriptures because of faithful Jewish men who were scribes, who were prophets, who were historians, who kept these records in perfection. You can't find a rendition of Moby Dick that's as accurate as what these scriptures have. Okay? Secondly, they were covenanted with God for a land. We call that place modern-day Israel. It still is. Was 1250 BC Israel, and it still is today. The Temple Mount, chosen by God. Why? Because He's God. God is God, I am not. Why did God choose Mount Zion over New York City? Because that's where He chose. And you can find all kinds of explanations, but why is that the center, the spiritual center of the world? Because that's where God chose. And part of the reason was because He covenanted with Israel. Now, you can find all kinds of people that'll come along and say this and this and this about Israel. And you'll find people that'll tell you that 2% of the population is responsible for 98% of the world's woes. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. So don't buy into it. Right? Probably half of this room hasn't even met somebody that's Jewish. Raise your hand if you know somebody that's Jewish. Okay. 80% of this room knows it. Put your hand down. Put your hand down. My point is, you guys are different. My point is that the narrative, now you see AI, you see the control of media, you see the control of what your doomsday scrolling in the middle of the night, you see all this, you see the control of the videos, you see the control of YouTube, and the narrative against Israel is accelerating. Anti-Semitism globally is up higher in 2026 than it was in Germany in 1939. That's not my summation. I'm not making this up as an opinion. That is through valid research and everything. Our friend Olivia Melnick, he'll be here in a couple weeks. He'll tell you the same thing. Why? Now, we have to get beyond the why. Because we have to get beyond the what to the why. Because God is moving forward. God is accelerating his pace. God is putting together, everything is converging into a point where God is ready to make the big move. I believe we're so close. God is ready to make the big move. And who is going to be the one that Satan can stop? Not going to stop God, but if he can block Israel, if he can get rid of all the Jews, then God, I defeated God, is what Satan is believing. You understand what I'm saying? So now we're seeing this global convergence. Meanwhile, we have globalism exploding on levels never seen before. And at the center of it is this little nation that God covenanted with 1,250 years before Christ even came. And everybody is chasing headlines. The YouTube prophets are chasing headlines. But what we need to pay attention to is, what is God doing? Why is all this converging? It's an amazing time to live in, friends. It's an amazing time to be a believer. Because you're looking at the world not through the lens of the AI algorithms. You're looking through the lens of what God wrote about, what God set out, what God says was going to happen. He wrote Revelation 13, 97 AD. And here we are, we're getting front row seats to the great setup. Sometimes the most, sometimes it's allergy season. Sometimes the most exciting, no thank you. Sometimes the most exciting time of the football game isn't the actual football game. Everybody gets riled up when the players come out on the field. Okay? We're watching the players come out on the field right now of the football game that's about to take place.